Good morning. Welcome to the Tuesday, August 29th, 2023 Tarrant County Commissioners Court meeting. I now call the meeting to order.
Tim O'Hare, County Judge.
Present.
Roy Charles Brooks, Commissioner of Prison 1.
Present.
Alisa Simmons, Commissioner of Prison 2. Here. Gary Fites, Commissioner of Prison 3.
Here.
Manny Ramirez, Commissioner of Prison 4.
Thank you very much. Today's invocation will be led by Hollis Kirkpatrick, the Director of Servants of the City in Fort Worth. Please rise for the invocation and our pledges of allegiance.
So honored to be here. Father, we just thank you for the fullness of you that has been given through Jesus Christ. Father, we thank you for forgiving us of the sins of our identity. And today we reign with you in the identity of Christ. I declare your presence here, your holiness here, your truth here. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you. Please join me in the pledge to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now to the Texas flag. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible. Thank you. You may be seated. Mr. Manius, well, we have 3 more to go here.
Yes, but who's counting?
Yeah.
So, members of the court, we have just a few announcements relating to the agenda this morning. When we get to the out-of-state travel under the administrator section, one of those items deals with public health, and we are not going to ask for any action on that today. We will be bringing that back to you next week. We will be asking for action as it relates to Commissioner Brooks's requested travel. Also on public health, item 9G 234, we're going to ask that we hold that for 1 week, and we'll bring that back next week for action on the court. Also, members of the court, just to remind you that we are going to go into closed session. I don't believe it's going to be for a very long time today. However, we do have a large number of audience participation forms this morning. And, Your Honor, I believe that you have them up at your desk. And there's a large number as it relates to item number 1 under the administrator section. So we will take those as we come to that particular agenda item. Thank you.
Thank you. And 9G 234, that's consent, right?
That's correct.
Okay, got it. All right, Commissioners Court announcements. Anything? Commissioner Brooks?
Not this morning.
Nothing? Got anything? Okay. So I think 2 things. One, our Senior Synergy event is this Thursday, August 31st. I think we have more people signed up than have ever signed up before. And it's going to be a really neat event. It's going to be a lot of fun. So we encourage seniors to come. Will Rogers, Thursday, August 31st, starts 8:30, ends at 1:30, and we have a lot of incredible sponsors and exhibitors, so please invite people to attend that. And I think most of you have probably heard this news, but we publicly announced it at the State of the County address last week, but subject, of course, to upcoming Commissioners Court approval, which I don't anticipate will be a problem, effective, I believe, October 1st, this building that we're all in will be known as the G.K. Manius Administration Building. So,
I think we can probably get 3 votes for that.
Will that be a public vote, or is it going to be by, just by paper?
all right, so after that, moving on to approval of the minutes, do we have a motion to approve the minutes or any amendments?
So moved.
All right, we have a motion to approve the minutes. We have a second. Any discussion? All right, please cast your vote. Gary, you want to vote on this?
Yeah, I think I do.
All right, passes unanimously. Next up is the consent agenda. 3 items removed. Do we have a motion or any questions on the consent agenda?
Move approval.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as amended. Any discussion? All right, please cast your vote there. Passes unanimously. Next, we move to the administrator's section.
Your Honor, on item number 1, Russell's going to make that presentation this morning.
Okay. We do have several folks signed up to speak to this item, so I will get to you, I promise. Maybe.
Good morning, Judge and Commissioners.
Good morning.
So per court's direction from 2 weeks ago, whenever we had a briefing item on the Solar for All grant program, staff is bringing back a resolution regarding Tarrant County's participation in Harris County's Solar for All grant application. So there are 2 grant applications that are currently being discussed within the state of Texas. TDHCA is the first one. That's from the state of Texas. And then the other one is Harris County. Harris County involves a coalition of cities and counties from across the state. So within the Harris County application, the structure of their coalition, Dallas County is the North Texas lead subrecipient. So if we choose to participate, if court votes to participate, we would then work with Dallas County to receive grant funding, work with our partners in order to get them to receive grant funding through Dallas County. So it would go, again, through them to where we would not have, or we would have minimal administrative oversight over this program. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Tell me about the TDHCA, Texas Department of Housing and Community Affairs.
Yes, sir.
For those of you who are not into the alphabet soup agencies, tell us about that program.
Staff has reached out to TDHCA to find out what their program would involve, what their application involved. And at the time that I reached out, they were unable to fully flesh out what their program was going to be at that time. So it's a question mark.
All right, so they're just a placeholder at this point.
Indications are that they're working towards submitting something, but I'm not advised of the details.
Okay.
Any other questions for Mr. Schaffner?
Is this an appropriate time to make a motion?
It certainly can be.
Okay, I move approval.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve. Any discussion before public comments? All right, seeing none. First person I have signed up to speak to this item is Melinda Akowski.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I have concerns with any type of involvement in solar and participating in programs that are going to expand that initiative. I think that we're in a time right now where we've seen what the solar has done here in Texas. It's not been successful, in my opinion. I believe that when we have needed excess energy, it's not been available. Last week on the news, it was broadcast that we were having trouble generating enough energy because of the not enough wind and the heat, and then in the wintertime it freezes up. So I think that we have renewable energy, plenty of it available in Texas. We're leading in that, and I don't really see a need for us to participate in any solar programs going forward. I think that the programs that have been initiated have been proven to not be successful. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Janet Mattern. Is Janet here? Oh, there you are. Okay.
Hello, thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Janet Mattern. I'm the Program Vice President of the League of Women Voters of Tarrant County. I've been asked to speak today for the League to support joining the Solar for All Texas Consortium. We are a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization. We do not support or oppose any political candidates or political parties. Last year, our League completed a study on affordable housing in Tarrant County. I hope you're not surprised that our county has been found to have insufficient affordable housing for our population. Our League supports all efforts to help residents reside in and have access to affordable housing. With Texas' higher summer temperatures and colder winter temperatures, energy costs for homeowners are on the rise. These rising energy costs contribute to higher costs for owning a home. So with the cost of buying a home increasing and energy costs increasing, it's very difficult for low-income residents to be able to afford to stay in their homes, let alone pay for energy bills. Therefore, the League of Women Voters of Tarrant County supports, and we are asking our Tarrant County commissioners and the county judge to support and vote for joining the Solar for All Texas Consortium grant application. Joining the other Texas counties in this consortium will provide Tarrant County with the best possible opportunity to receive these federal monies. These can be used towards solar to help low-income residents stay in their homes, in addition to nonprofit organizations. We respectfully ask that our Tarrant County commissioners recognize the importance of assisting low-income homeowners to reduce their energy costs by using solar, and that they can better afford to stay in their homes and contribute to our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Dan Lipinski.
I'd like to commend Russell and the administrator's office for the job that they've done on the memos to you folks. They've been quite thorough. I'm here to address questions that the administrator could not. Question number 7, what happens to the cost of electricity for businesses and homeowners that do not have solar panels? There is no effect whatsoever. I've been involved in this industry for 51 years. I am not aware of any increases to anyone without solar, and in fact, it's usually just the opposite because it reduces the load in a given area on the grid. Number 2, looking at your question, do solar panels increase the cost of homeowners insurance? I am completely unaware of any increases that have resulted from that. In fact, there are often stay the same as they have for our home, where we've had solar panels for more than 20 years. Solar panels have proven more robust than roofs. Where we've had hail that have demolished shingles, the solar panels remain intact, and it's cheaper to remove and reinstall the solar panels than it is to replace the roofing underneath them. Number 3, if you replace the roof, what consideration? The administrators did answer that question. It's a simple matter, as we've had done last March when the roofing on our home needed to be replaced. The company came out, removed the solar panels, we got the new roof installed, and then the solar panels were put back on, and our insurance paid for both tasks. Number 4, what problems have homeowners experienced from solar installations? Same problems that you have in every industry. We've had lousy roofing contractors, lousy building contractors, lousy mechanics, and so forth. Do we have our share of snakes? The short answer is yes. But if it's properly administered, this particular program is easily able to weed out the bad ones, the same as Encore does. Encore offers incentive money right now for installing solar panels, which many people are not aware of. But in order to qualify for that, the contractor has to submit documentation and evidence accepted by Encore that says, okay, you are qualified where somebody else may not be. So they do a pre-vetting process to avoid just that problem. The same thing goes on in every other industry. And unfortunately, these get a little bit of high notoriety because, yeah, the systems are more expensive. And if somebody does get taken, it's expensive. But the same thing happens in building and other trades. So I believe I've covered all of the questions that were missed by the administrator's office. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next up, we have Lon Burnham.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Everyone. First of all, I just have a whole lot of thank yous. This morning, I was able to attend the first meeting where this was initially presented to the court. I want to thank Commissioner Simmons for initiating this effort and Commissioner Brooks for supporting her every step of the way. And Commissioner Ficus, I want to thank you for the questions you asked at that first board meeting, as well as you, County Judge O'Hare. I think all the questions have been adequately addressed now. I'm going to give you a brief background and history on my perspective. Just want to make sure you know that I'm here representing the Sierra Club, the nation's largest environmental organization that has long advocated solar. Since an undergraduate class that I took in the mid-'70s about the energy crisis, I've understood that we need to expand our way and means of producing energy for consumption for consumers and business alike. The National Center for Appropriate Technology was established here in Tarrant County back in the mid-'70s, and I worked actively with that office, worked actively with the city of Fort Worth when we hired an energy administrator to work on cost savings. One of the key ways, of course, and cheapest ways is weatherization, but the other way to achieve savings is to create on-site energy production, and that's what solar energy does. And contrary to the first testimony that we heard, it has been extraordinarily successful in this state. I was in the legislature when we deregulated the industry, and we skyrocketed our production of both solar and wind energy. We would have been in a true energy crisis this last winter and this summer were it not for solar and wind energy production. It really doesn't matter what this Commissioner's Court does on this particular item or agenda. It simply speaks to whether or not we are backwards and don't understand our patriotic duty to support the development of solar energy in this country. All you have to do is look at what's going on in Europe and recognize what has happened to the economies of Western Europe because of Russia and its ability to blackmail people over access to energy. And you have to intuitively understand that it is our patriotic duty to always support development of solar and wind energy. The question is, what is your role? Your role is negligible in this. Commissioner Simmons has brought forward the opportunity to help low-income communities, and whether or not Tarrant County votes to participate in this doesn't really matter. The program is going to be in place, and Harris County and Dallas County are going to benefit from it. So the question is, do you really care about low-income people in this county, or are you just ideologically opposed to the intelligent thing to do, which is to produce more solar energy? Thank you for your time, Judge.
Next up, we have Rogelio Mawero. It's my best effort there. Is Rogelio here? Okay. All right. And next up, we have George Dodson.
Good morning, and thank you for allowing me to come forward this morning. I come forward today to discuss the resolution regarding all solar application. I spent the last year and a half monitoring our ERCOT grid in Texas. What I have found is that when the weather goes above 95 degrees and below 20 degrees, solar energy fails us. First of all, in Texas summer, solar energy only performs about 50% efficient. And of course, when the sun sets, zero electricity is generated. The Texas ERCOT grid is in trouble, as we've seen the last several days, because of the percentage of our power that solar and wind is supposed to provide. How many of you are willing to go without air conditioning to allow us to add more solar energy? This plan the plan that we're talking about here will add more solar generation to our grid, which will only make our grid more unreliable. One of the many reasons solar systems are not flying off the shelves is the payback period for solar systems reaches into decades, if ever. This resolution package details a lot of questions, and that was just discussed. But anyway, when we're putting these panels on houses that are damaged by wind or have a problem with their roof, of course, they're going to have to be, the panels have to be taken off and put back on. Bidenomics have brought us a 20% inflation, which is now costing us 100% more in gas prices, 30 to 40% higher groceries, and I could go on. However, lower income citizens are getting hurt the worst because these kind of programs are causing our inflation. Finally, the Biden-Harris Justice 40 plan is another social justice spread the wealth use of our taxes that already caused inflation to be the greatest since the 1970s. This program is part of trillions of dollars our government is spending for so-called clean energy that is neither clean nor free. If we want true clean energy, we should be funding small nuclear generators, which provide much cheaper energy with zero pollution, and the nuclear fuel can be recycled into more energy. Solar panels require Chinese minerals to operate. We should not be buying anything from our enemy, China. I don't like my taxes to go for programs that have many negative side effects and end up with few benefits. I ask the commissioners today to vote no for this boondoggle. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, we have Catherine Haygood. Is Catherine here with us? Okay, next we have Eleanor Forfang-Brockman. No Eleanor. Do we have, yes, Levon Cockrell.
Thank you, Judge O'Hare. Nice to see everybody here today. I'm missing Commissioner Manning. We have an opportunity to stop the alerts that go out from ERCOT telling us to put our thermostats at 90 so that we will at least have electricity. 30% of the energy, I monitor that ERCOT app, and 30% of the energy that we have been living on has come from solar and wind for the last 3 weeks. And higher than that in some times prior. So facts do matter. If you do not have the app so that you can see moment to moment to moment where the energy is being generated, please get it. It's very simple and it's very informative. And I trust ERCOT for that. Signing on to this consortium is a good idea, and I have talked to a lot of my Republican friends, and I have a lot of Republican friends. They know I come up here and talk to everybody. And I tell them about this program. And they go, why don't they want to sign on to this? And I said, I think it's because it's a Biden thing. Or I think it's because it's a Democratic thing. And in 1985, the Republicans decided to stop working with the Democrats. They used to party together. They used to know each other's children. They used to love each other. But in 85, someone, and we know who, if you've been around for 71 years, decided we're not going to work together. We're not going to synergize what's best for people. And that's when the poorer people and the teachers, like me, began to lose and lose because the pay didn't keep up. Teacher today should be making $125, so paying a $500 energy bill would probably not be a problem. But considering someone who makes $25,000 and $30,000 a year, not trying to find a way for them to live and be comfortable and not have to put their thermostats at 90 is a very important thing. Please make sure, I know with your commissioners' salaries that you've got full staffs. Please make sure all of these questions are answered and that you can, in good faith, help us out. Let's put in some solar panels. Fusion is not coming until 2050, says my PhD neighbor chemist, who monitors and sends me, pull your thermostat up, pull your thermostat up. We're running out. My friend didn't have energy yesterday. Put your thermostat on 90. When she sends me that, that's what I do, and I go to the movies. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next up, we have Kenya Alou.
Hello, Judge O'Hara and Commissioners. My name is Kenya Alou. I'm the Executive Director of Citizens Defending Freedom, Tarrant County Chapter. I want to speak today on the Justice 40 Climate Initiative, Agenda Item 9A1. This EPA grant funded through the Inflation Reduction Act is actually a taxpayer-funded initiative. Using words like grant and inflation reduction does not change the fact that this is funded by taxpayers. This is a socialist initiative, and our country has allowed socialism to creep in, and it's just one more step in the direction of total control and communism. Not only is this an expense that taxpayers should not be burdened with, but manufacturing solar panels and then disposing of them when they're no longer in use does nothing for our environment. They're built from non-renewable materials and have a lifespan of only 20 years. There's much research I can point you to about how solar is just not sustainable or a wise investment on this scale. Individuals may evaluate their own personal situation and determine that solar is a good move for them. They can pay for it themselves and take the risk. Government has no place in this. Please vote no to joining Harris County. In my opinion, if Harris County is doing something, we should be very leery due to the level of corruption there. Let's keep our winning streak going and be set apart and stand out for good. Is this the appropriate time to address other topics, or is this just on solar?
I think this is just on solar. Yep. All right, thank you. Next up is Doreen Geiger.
Thank you, Commissioners. I'm here to talk about money. I've heard this court many times talk about wanting to be fiscally responsible and save taxpayers money. And I personally would love to see some of this money come to Tarrant County, not only to benefit low-income families, but also to benefit the county. I've looked at the fine print. It clearly states counties may put solar on their own buildings and reduce their energy bills. In 2022, our county's electric bill was $5 million. This year, so far, it's $4.5 million and climbing. I feel like if you put solar on all your sub-courthouses and maintenance garages and all your parking garages, all your buildings, you would conservatively reduce your electric bill anywhere from $1 to $2 million. I think that's a huge savings. At least that kind of money is big to me. I've heard some people voice concerns about, well, solar can't provide all of our energy. We need everything. We need solar, we need wind, we need gas, and we need oil. We can't depend on just one of those. We've had problems with gas wells. We've had problems with Encore being able to meet our needs during bad storms. We need it all. We can't say we're only going to do solar or only going to do wind or only do gas and oil. I hope you will really give serious consideration to this. This is not going to cost us money. I have heard you all, and I believe you when you say nothing is free. 25% of this funding is designed just a set-aside for administrative costs. The other 75% is the actual putting on and operating solar. This would benefit you not for $1 million to $2 million in 1 year. This would benefit you and save you for years to come. The actual program is 5 years. I hope you'll give serious consideration. I appreciate your attention to this matter. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Patra Stromer.
Good morning. My name is Petra Stramer, and as I introduced myself 2 weeks ago, I'm a retired engineer from Lockheed Martin and have lived in Tarrant County for most of my life. I want to thank the court for additional opportunity to comment and the staff for the quick and thorough answers to the court's questions. I'm really impressed with the ability of the staff to quickly understand a new and complex issue and provide quick results that are easily understandable to me in particular. I'm here to advocate again in favor of Tarrant County's participation in the Solar for All program to benefit the taxpayer. 2 weeks ago, I said it's all about the money and being fiscally responsible, and I believe that's still the case. That said, and while remembering that much of what we're talking about here are commercial rooftop solar installations, valid concerns regarding the homeowner exist. Per the staff report and my own personal experience, I've considered putting solar on my house as well, and I can see how pushy some of the companies are, and until some of these questions were raised 2 weeks ago, some of the concerns that might be my own problem hadn't occurred to me until you asked these questions, so I really appreciate that. But per this report and my experience, we have problems with unregulated, overly aggressive nature of some residential solar installers in the state of Texas. If residential projects are selected for a portion of the money's use, the county or United Way is clearly in a better position to select responsible installers through good quality control mechanisms than the average homeowner is. That, along with requirements in the EPA notice of funding opportunity, will help the best local installers rise to the surface from a business standpoint by driving business towards them. And I believe this is just a win for everyone. If you, I consider myself an independent. Fiscally, I would be to the right of the middle. If someone doesn't believe in solar energy, don't put it on your house. So, but don't leave money on the table for the rest of us that are interested and want those funds to benefit our county. And I still believe it's the right way to do business. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Brandy O'Quinn.
Good morning.
Good morning, Brandy.
First, I have not had a chance to welcome you, Judge, and Commissioner Simmons to the court. Congratulations. I know I'm very late on congratulating you, but I wanted to do my welcome. My name is Brandy O'Quinn, and I have presented to this court over the years in different capacities, but I stand before you today as an economic developer and a longtime resident of Tarrant County. I want to share how joining the Solar for All consortium benefits our image and brand and is good for business. When companies are looking to relocate to an area, they have a list of requirements. Some are weighted more than others, but there's always a theme or a pattern, if you will. There are the typical elements: quality public education, available workforce, quality of life, cost of living. But the recurring theme we hear now is recruitment and retention of young people. And in fact, Benji Backer, executive chairman of a conservative climate organization, has said last week, young people are not going to vote for you. They will not relocate or stay in an area that refutes climate change. Among GOP voters, younger people are more likely to see the climate crisis as a threat that requires action, more so than the party's older voters. And I was not going to bring up climate change because it can be divisive, and really this decision is about good business. More and more companies looking to relocate also want to know that communities are providing the available resources equitably to all residents, especially helping hardworking families offset the increased cost of living. The Inflation Reduction Act is exactly that, reducing the effects of inflation. Solar for All would help reduce the cost of living as we all experience higher utility bills due to the extreme weather. You have the 13th largest city and the fastest growing city in the nation within this county, with an estimated population of more than 950,000 people. 13.4% live in poverty, approximately 128,000 people. These people are hardworking, working in the service industry, teachers, fire, police, nurses. And to put it in perspective, I'd like to respond to one of the questions connected to the resolution. Why haven't Denton, Collin, and Parker counties joined? Because this grant is for lower income neighborhoods and families. And the largest counties in this state, of which Tarrant is one of them, represents at least 70% of those homeowners. Additionally, to put it in perspective, Denton's and Parker Collin's median home price is between $475,000 and $515,000. And Tarrant, albeit has gone up considerably, is only at $319,000. And for an update on the consortium, it now includes Beaumont, Port Arthur, Orange, and El Paso, and some of the largest cities in South Texas because of their demographics.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Linda Hanratty.
Thank you, Commissioners, for bringing this back up. This is a very important issue. As a homeowner for over 40 years in Tarrant County, I've watched my taxes go up and up and up, and I heard all the people complaining about that. The solar plan would help with that. I've had solar panels for 14 years, and if my homeowner's insurance went up, it was because the value of my home went up. I also have gone through 2 hailstorms and had my roof replaced and the solar panels put back on. So I know that works. Yes, there have been people that have been cheated, but they were cheated by fly-by-night people who came and took advantage often of low and moderate income people. This would help low and moderate income people. And it might also help the hospital, which apparently doesn't have, the hospital district, which apparently now doesn't have enough money to build the freestanding medical, not emergency, but walk-in clinics that they talked about building. Anything we can do to lower prices on utilities for people is very important. And the money has already been allocated. As a federal taxpayer, I've paid my share of that. And to say, well, we don't want to take it because it's a bad program. As a taxpayer, I want us to get our share. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Carlos Tercios. No Carlos. Next, we have Gerald and Jackie Cox.
Mr. Manning, I brought the press release from me, a good release article. Thank you, Court. It's nice to be here again today. I want to talk to you about something that's much in the news, and it's the ERCOT warnings that came out all of last week that we were just on the edge of another emergency breakdown. Solar has been one of the things that has saved us from an ERCOT collapse as we have made our way through this summer, because solar panels create their own electrical source, and the homes that have them, or the businesses or wherever, become their own little generating plants. They make enough electricity for the house that is where the panels are located, and sometimes they make enough electricity for other adjacent houses. It goes back into the Encore system. So putting up solar panels is a way around having to build more plants. The nuclear plant in Glen Rose produces less energy than the solar panels that are on people's houses now. That really matters. So, because I view climate change as a life-threatening emergency, and that's because for me, I don't breathe so well. And when the weather is really hot, the methane hangs closer to the earth, and my COPD is worse. And I'm aware that older persons like myself are threatened. I mean, I can't really afford to move into somewhere the electricity in my neighborhood goes out. You probably remember what happened when we had a grid collapse in the winter and the pipes froze and people's houses got flooded. It becomes an emergency that creates greatly increased insurance bills. So the whole power shortage with climate change hits us from multiple directions. I therefore think that you have almost a patriotic duty to do what you can to increase solar production in Tarrant County by bringing the federal grant funds for that here. Please protect us. We need your help to get through this. Climate crisis is real, it's alive, and it creates many cost burdens for us that you could help to reduce if you would vote and press to get this grant money. I'm sorry that we lost our opportunity for sure to sign the contract. We're now hanging on the grace of Dallas to let us tag along on their part of the grant, and they may do it for us. But please don't blow that last chance we have of getting this assistance.
Thank you. Next, we have Bruce Miller. Next, we have Jim DeLong. Yes.
My name is Jim DeLong, and first of all, I want to thank you for your leadership in our county. And you work hard, and there's so many decisions you make on our behalf. And I want to thank you for that, for standing in that place. I am against this bill, or this movement. I agree. I think solar energy is very important. I think it's a way that people can become more self-sustaining in their lives and in their homes. My issue is it's not free. It's free to someone who takes advantage of it. But someone has to pay for that. All of us in this room will have to pay for that. And that's my biggest concern, that it's free money to those who are able to take advantage of the program, but every one of us in this room will be paying for that with our taxes. And I think that's a grave concern, because there are so many things that we're paying for, so many issues. I mean, how many trillions of dollars of debt is our country in? Because our government is paying for things that they can't afford. And so that's my main concern. As a taxpayer, I'm all for solar, but I don't think other people should necessarily pay for other people's ability to get solar. And again, that's my main concern. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Holly Clemens. No Holly. Next, we have John Pete. No John. Okay, that's all the folks I have signed up to speak to this item. So, commissioners, we have a motion, we have a second. Questions, comments?
I would comment that joining this consortium does not obligate anybody to do anything. Joining this consortium gives people choices. And choices in America is what we all ought to be about. Choices, the freedom to make choices is a big rock principle of this nation. Whether you agree or disagree with the Biden-Harris administration, whether you agree or disagree with ALEC, which wrote the playbook that y'all are down here advocating for today, solar energy needs to be a part of our energy toolkit. In Texas, we make a lot of strange decisions. One of the strangest of which was not to connect the Texas grid to the national grid. And we see the folly. We have seen the folly of that decision. We cannot stand alone when it comes to generating energy for the citizens of the state of Texas. We must join with others. We must have all of the options available to us in order to be energy independent in Texas. That's why I support this initiative. That's why I'm going to vote for it, and I hope my colleagues will agree with me.
Yes, yeah. So I echo what Commissioner Brooks said, and just to reiterate, oil and gas are not going away. It's not going anyplace. And much of what we're talking about is a commercial application, not so much rooftops of residents. And let me be clear, taking federal dollars for equity issues is not new for Tarrant County. Tarrant County has accepted millions of dollars, and some might argue profited from the American Rescue Plan, or ARPA, to the tune of about $480 million. In fact, when we received ARPA dollars, JPS Health Network was able to build a savings cushion that ultimately allowed us to lower the hospital district's tax rate. That has benefited all Tarrant County residents who own a home and pay taxes here. When Tarrant County goes after solar for all dollars, there is absolutely no difference than our seeking ARPA funds. Both programs are part of the Justice 40 initiative. They're simply implemented by different federal agencies. Not a single court member argued against accepting ARPA dollars and using ARPA dollars. Each of us knows that ARPA has benefited families in our communities and has helped alleviate hunger among Tarrant County children, among other things. So Solar for All is just that. It's for all. And finally, I'll say this. When Tarrant County receives federal dollars, whether it's for disasters or whether it's for solar power, we lower the financial burden on all taxpayers and homeowners. This federal grant gives us a new revenue stream, and that's what we should be looking for on this court.
Thank you. Do you have anything?
Well, I'm going to support that. And I think there are a lot of reasons that Commissioner Simmons brought up. She and I don't agree a lot of times. Every once in a while, we don't agree. So I will be voting in that direction. So.
Well, Commissioner Brooks, I too can count. And
that's my line.
Yeah, was that yours? Well, I gave him your motion. I gave him your line. I'm missing it.
Ignore me.
So I do want to address a couple of things. The notion that if you don't vote for this, you don't care about low-income people is one of the dumbest things I've ever heard uttered. This county has spent just this year tens of millions of dollars on low-income housing. Has, I would describe, a very robust housing finance corporation that helps a multitude of low-income families and has a large number of programs that helps low-income families, including utility resource assistance. You can be against this and still be for helping low-income families, and you can be against this and still be a patriotic American. I personally have seen too many problems in real estate transactions and dealing with solar. That is undeniable. I've seen them. If you know anything about it, you've seen them too. I have also, Progressive Insurance has said, and we see it in the notes, that this does cause your insurance premiums to go up. Does anybody know how much it causes it to go up? No? So you have no idea what you're saddling folks with, none whatsoever. The other thing, so the first time we talked about it, this was all for low-income residents. Then when concerns were raised, then it shifted mid-meeting to concern that this was all going to be for businesses and nonprofits. I can see we're back. This is for low-income residents. And at the end of the day, I'm 100% for anybody doing solar if you want to. I bet if I ask for a show of hands who has solar on their homes, I bet it's not 5% of the people in this room. And there's a reason for that. So if you want solar, go get it. But again, I can count. So we have a motion. We have a second. Any further discussion from the court? Okay. Please cast your votes. All right, it passes 3-1. All right, thank you. We will move to the next item. We will move to the next item, which is, where did my agenda go?
Your Honor, we're now at the out-of-state travel requests. And
yes,
we have one request that we're asking the court to approve. This is a request by Commissioner Brooks of Precinct 1 to attend the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation 52nd Annual Legislative Conference, which will be held in Washington, D.C.
Approval. I'll second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, please cast your vote. Passes unanimously.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Incidentally, that is for two people to attend, not just for me.
Next up, we have the Auditor section, approval and release and substitution of depository collateral.
Good morning, Judge, Commissioners. In your court communique, we're asking the approval and release of substitution of depository collateral, and the information is attached. Be happy to answer any questions.
Move approval.
All right, we have a motion to approve of the release and substitution of depository collateral. Do we have a second? Second. Any discussion? All right, please cast your vote. All right, passes unanimously. Next up, budget and risk management. Helen.
We are seeking approval for the items that are non-consent appropriation adjustments with one revision. You should have the revision in your red folder. Under Fund 454, it states on your document that it says non-departmental, undesignated. It is actually correctly changed to facilities administration, moving for the chiller replacement project down to the plaza building.
Move approval.
Which one are we approving right there?
So I'm asking
All
for approval for
combined?
all of
Got
them.
it. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yep. All of them. All right, we have a motion to approve these 2023 appropriation adjustments. Do we have a second? Second. We have a quiet bunch over here today. We have a motion and a second. Any questions or discussion?
So on number one, that's the firing range?
Yes, that's to remediate the lead from the firing range.
So are we using the firing range or not at the moment?
Not currently.
Yes, but what we have done, we have agreed and entered into a contract with the Water District to use that facility. One of the precursors of us going back to that range is we need to remove the lead from the berms.
Okay, and so we would stop using the water district's range?
Until we have this lead removal, and then we're going to, then we'll once again use that firing range.
Okay.
So we're stopped now.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
We're stopped now.
Mm-hmm.
After the remediation, we'll start using it again.
Okay, thank you.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right, seeing none, please cast your vote. All right, passes unanimously. Next up, Human Resources, the personnel agenda.
Move to receive and file the personnel agenda. Second.
We have a motion and a second to receive and file the personnel agenda. Any discussion? Please cast your vote. Passes unanimously. Next up, approval of fiscal year 2024 compensation recommendations.
So, members of the court, before Ms. Glenn lays this out, I wanted to tell you that I've had a discussion with Commissioner Ramirez and about what the recommendations for staff are, and if he is supportive of those percentages that are on the in the court communication. If we get to the point that we are going to change any of those, then he would ask that we hold this so that he can be part of that discussion next week.
I would suggest that we hold it anyway, because what the recommendation is does not match with discussions that were held and agreements that came out of those discussions with the various employee groups involved. Not having been involved in those discussions, I don't know how it changed from this to that, and I would like for that portion to be held until we can have a fuller discussion before this court, so I can understand why it changed.
Is there any reason we cannot move item E2 to the next meeting?
No, we can move it to next week.
Let's do that. Any objections? Yeah. Okay. All right, we'll move E2 to the next meeting, which then brings us to E3.
Yes. Good morning, court members. So we have several items, remaining items on the agenda. Item 3 will take a little bit of time or a lot of time, depending upon how much discussion the court would like to have. You do have a handout in your packets, and I believe you have copies behind you, or will have copies behind you for anybody who'd like to follow along. So what has gotten us here today, this is the time of the year that we come to the court and have discussions about plan choices and rate sharing for next benefit year. And as a reminder to the court, the benefit year starts in January and ends in December, so it's on a calendar year. There have been a couple of meetings before this meeting. Many of you and your staff have been involved in those discussions. Several weeks ago, we met with our benefit consultant, Gallagher. They reviewed with us our claims data for this past year. Also, we discussed trends. The consultant made some recommendations based upon that data. That data was then brought in-house with our internal group a week and a half ago or so. And so the recommendations that we're going to be discussing with the court today are recommendations that were made by the internal working group that meets every year to discuss the issues and then come to the court with recommendations. So With that said, let's just jump right into the documentation that you have. If you will look at Exhibit A in your packet or information, the items on this page are a variety of different items. They all address Internal Revenue Service guidelines that, of course, were mandated to follow for our PPO plan as well as our high deductible plan. And then finally, our flexible spending account plan as well. So items 1, 2, and 3, and 4 actually, again address Internal Revenue Service guidelines. The first item refers to limits that are being mandated for a high deductible plan. The second refers to deductible limits for the high deductible plan. Item 3 would be our flexible spending account plan, again, IRS guidelines in terms of how we manage that plan. And then finally, the last item, item 4, would be the carryover amount from 23 to 24 for our flexible savings account. So again, I'm happy to get into more detail. The information is outlined. Again, this is really just an effort to make sure that we record the court's agreement, concurrence with these IRS guidelines for 2024. If you don't have questions, I would ask for approval of Exhibit A.
Move approval of Exhibit A.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve Exhibit A, and Tina, is Exhibit A is where the health insurance premium holiday is in.
That will be in an
next
exhibit
one.
that we'll discuss.
Okay, gotcha.
Not this one.
All right. All right, we have a motion and a second to approve Exhibit A. Any discussion? Please cast your vote. Passes unanimously.
So Exhibit B is, 4 or 5 pages. This exhibit, just to sort of orient you, you have your service providers on your far left column. You have current rates, which are 2023 rates in the middle column. And then on the far right column, you have 2024 rates. And again, 23, 24 are monthly rates, if I didn't make that clear. So what we've done in this exhibit is we've highlighted in yellow for you where we have changes in rates. And so if you follow along with me, first page of that exhibit, items 4 and 5, you can see that we do have increases for those items. They are 3% increases. Item 4 would be the fee that we pay for administration of our PPO and high deductible plans. That increase is consistent with the rate in the contract that has been previously approved by the court. Item 5, we have, again, a 3% rate increase. These would be administrative fees for our retiree plans. Again, that's consistent with increases that we were anticipating. If you flip over to page 2 of that exhibit, you'll see 4 items that are highlighted, items 7, 8, 9, and 10. Item 7, again, is a 3% adjustment that we're expecting, and that is for our wellness program. Those are the fees associated with administering that program. Item 8 represents the seed money that the county has contributed for several years to employees and retirees who participate in the high deductible plans. We are recommending a change in 2024. We're recommending that seed money increases from $750 to $850. And the reason for the adjustment, or the requested adjustment, is because we do have some changes on the high deductible plan where our deductibles are going to be increasing. And so it's our desire to try to provide employees with a little bit more money to deal with that adjustment. Item 9, we do not have that information as of yet. This would be the rate for our stop loss coverage. We typically receive that around September, October. So we'll come back to the court with that item once we receive it with that rate. Item 10, you see that there is just a small deduction or decrease in the rate that we pay for administrative services for pharmacy services. And then, pardon me, and then item 11, I did not mention that one early on. That too, we're waiting for that rate. That would be the rate for our long-term disability coverage. That benefit is provided to all employees at no cost to the employee. The last couple of items that I'll bring your attention to or direct your attention to on Exhibit B is item 15. That's the last page of Exhibit B. And so there you see some pretty minor decreases. Decreases are always good news. The first is for the rate for our Medicare Advantage HMO plan, which we'll talk about more in just a moment. That's one of the plans that we offer to our Medicare eligible retirees. The last highlighted item that you see, again, is a small decrease. Decreases are good news. And again, this is for the senior supplement plan that I believe we have 2 retirees who participate on currently. And again, we'll talk about that plan in more detail. Unless you have any questions about this exhibit, then we're asking for approval of Exhibit B.
Any questions for Tina or discussion?
Move approval of Exhibit B.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve Exhibit B. Any further discussion? All right, please cast your vote. All right, passes unanimously.
Thank you. Next exhibit is Exhibit C1. Here we're demonstrating for the court medical premiums that our employees pay in 2023. Those are the rates that you see at the top of the page. I know it's a little bit busy, but I'll walk you through it. The bottom half of the page are proposed rates for 2024. So if you'll direct your attention to the pink columns, both at the top and at the bottom, those are monthly rates, premiums, that our employees pay in 2023 for the PPO and the high deductible plans. So that's at the top, that's 2023. 2024, you'll see that the monthly rates are exactly the same. So the internal working group is recommending to the court what we're calling a rate hold for 2024, meaning employee premiums will not increase in 2024. I've already mentioned the seed money that we're recommending to change from $750 to $850 in 2024 for those employees and retirees who are in a high deductible plan. And then the last point, Judge O'Hare mentioned the holiday premium. The internal group is recommending for active employees in December of 2024, what we're calling a premium holiday, which will mean that employees will not pay premiums if the court approves for their medical plans in December of 2024, in the month of December of 2024. So those are the 3 recommendations that the internal group is recommending on Exhibit C1.
So you would take the premium that the employee would pay in December of 2024 and spread that over the previous months?
No, sir.
How would this be funded?
A premium holiday would mean that employees would not be required to pay premiums in 2024, in December of 2024. That would be the court's gift to employees in December. The county would absorb that cost.
Okay.
And just to add on to that, so this was Commissioner Ramirez and I are the court's, whatever we're called, members of this board, and Commissioner Ramirez brought this up, and the pool of money to pay the claims is too high. that it actually needs to come down. So the discussion was, well, do we lower the premiums a little bit? What do we do? So the ultimate decision that we made, and it passed unanimously as much as it's an actual counted vote, was for the year 2024, the premiums will stay the exact same, but you won't pay it at all in December.
So this was adopted by the entire PEBC?
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. So good news for employees if it passes.
Move approval.
All right, we have a motion to approve Exhibit C1.
Second.
And a second. Any discussion? All right, please cast your vote. All right, that passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you. Merry Christmas to our employees.
Yes.
And happy early Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas 2024.
There you go.
Yeah. So,
2024. And if I could just, before I move on to the next exhibit, I want to revisit 2 points. The judge made the comment about, there's a lot of, there's money there that's available. I want to remind the court that our PPO and high deductible plans, HDP is what we call it, those are self-funded plans. And so what has happened over the course of many, many years is that we collect premiums from employees, and then the county, right, adds whatever it's going to add, and year over year, what that has resulted in is a reserve. And so when the judge talked about trying to sort of bring down that money that's accumulated, that's the reserve that he's referring to. And so that means that our employees have done a good job managing their medical claims and their health, and so we want to encourage employees to continue to do that so that we can hopefully come back next year with good news. And then Commissioner Brooks, you asked a question about whether all of the PEBC member agencies are on board with this premium holiday. That's not something I've discussed, at least with folks external to Tarrant County. Remember, Tarrant County is one of 5 members of our PEBC group. So they may be doing the same thing. I don't know. We'll certainly let them know.
The judge said it was adopted unanimously.
on the board.
Our internal working
Our internal board, yeah.
Our internal working group.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Just wanted to make sure I was clear about that.
So it's an across-the-board recommendation?
Yes, sir.
To the various commissioners, courts, and boards?
It's an internal Tarrant County.
No, I think you're thinking of the one where Tarrant County, Dallas County are all involved.
Yeah.
That's not this one.
This
is the internal Tarrant County one.
I see.
This is our working group. This is a recommendation.
All right.
So, okay. So, wanted to make sure we're clear about that. So, next item is item C2. Again, this is good news. So, with item C2, I know this is a very busy handout. Happy to spend as much time as you like for me to go over this handout if you like. But what Exhibit C2 represents in its very busy fashion. So these are the rates that are in place currently for our retirees who are younger than 65. So for retirees generally, we have a couple of offerings. For those who are under 65, retirees, they get to select from the same plans as our active employees do, the PPO and the high deductible plan. That's this exhibit. That's Exhibit C. These are our young retirees. The court may recall that for this group, over years and years and years and lots of discussion, where the court has been is that the court's decision has been to provide a greater subsidy to those individuals that have served the county the longest. So to make this as simple as I can, let's look at the very last, no, that's, what do you call that? Row, I guess, row. So 25 years or greater years of service. That's where most of our young retirees are. So they work more than 25 years, at least 25 years before they retire. And so you can see the census in that far left column. What we're proposing for this group is the same as we propose for active, a rate hold, meaning there'd be no increases to premiums to our young, early retirees in 2024. Again, I'm happy to walk you through this exhibit, but again, it just represents early retirees, greater subsidy for more years of service. We're recommending, the internal group is recommending a rate hold for 2024.
That's for the pre-Medicare eligible group.
Yes, sir.
Move approval.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve C2. Any discussion? All right, please cast your vote. All right, passes unanimously.
Thank you. So Exhibit C3, so again, we're still talking about retirees. In this instance, we're talking about our retirees who are Medicare eligible. They are still young, Mr. Manias. They are just Medicare eligible. Okay, they're still young.
Notice that the other retirees were young retirees. She said that 5 times.
I'm trying to make the point. So these retirees are still young.
All right, so
They are
for
Medicare
us
eligible.
old-timers,
So what we're recommending for this group, and by the way, before I get to the recommendation, with this group, our Medicare eligible retirees, they have a couple of options. They have an HMO option and a PPO, well, 2 options, and a PPO option. The first page of C3 is the PPO plan. We are recommending a rate hold for that group. Did I say that right? Yeah. A rate hold for that group, so no change in their premium. If you'll flip to the second page of C3, so this is the HMO plan for our Medicare eligible retirees, and you can see there are very, very minor decreases. These are fully funded plans, and so the premiums for those plans have gone down just a tad bit. And then the last page of C3, I mentioned this group earlier. This is a grandfathered plan. If I can count, I think I can. We have 2 retirees in this group. These are 2 retirees that elected years ago not to have prescription coverage. So, and that plan is not available to any other retirees. So when they're not on the plan, it's gone. So that's our recommendation for C3. Questions? I'll take questions if you have them.
okay. Move approval of C3.
We have a motion to approve C3. I'll second it. Any further questions or discussion? All right, seeing none, please cast your vote. All right, passes unanimously.
Thank you. And our last exhibit is Exhibit D. So Exhibit D represents our dental and our vision plans. These plans are available to employees as well as retirees. And just as a reminder, historically, the dental and vision plans are 100% funded by employees, historically, because we have just a little bit of a difference this year. So what we're recommending, for 2024 will be for the PPO dental plan, because there are 2 options. There's a PPO plan and what we call a DHMO plan. So for the DHMO plan, we're recommending a rate hold, so no change if you're on that plan. For the PPO plan is a self-funded dental plan. And so over the years, we're struggling with this plan. We're actually collecting employee premiums, but claims are outpacing premiums. So there was a lot of discussion about this item, and so to fully cover claims, expected claims, would require a 13.1% increase. And again, I mentioned that this is completely funded by the employee. And so rather than pass along the entire increase, what the internal group is recommending is that we pass along half of that increase. And then the county would absorb the other half of that increase. what that actually looks like in terms of increases to employees. If you look in the far left column, it's like a tan sort of color. So you'll see what that means for employees in the way of monthly increases. So if I'm on the PPO plan and I cover just myself, I'd be looking at an additional $2.16 a month. That's what absorbing half of that increase looks like. Okay, so that's what we're proposing for 2024. You can see with family coverage, my increase is $6.95 a month. So that's half of the increase. That's not all of the increase. The only other item on this exhibit is at the bottom. That's vision. Vision plan, and again, we're recommending a rate hold. So rate hold for vision, rate hold for the DHMO, and half a 13.5% increase for the PPO plan. That's the recommendation from the internal group. Questions?
Move approval of the dental rates.
All right, we have a motion to approve Exhibit D. Do we have a second?
We have a second.
We have a second. All right, any further discussion here? All right, please cast your vote. All right, passes unanimously. Thank you, Tina.
So we have, let's see, we have 3 TO changes before we get to our last item, and Ms. Ramdaran will be covering that item. So the first TO change is budget. Pretty straightforward. Helen has an existing ARPA-funded position. It's vacant. She's asking for the court to approve a retitling of that position so that she can have a grant writer on staff. Again, there is funding available for this position, so there's no additional impact. So we would ask the court's approval.
Approval.
I'll make a second. So we have a motion and a second to approve this change to the table of organization and budget and risk management. Any further discussion? All right, please cast your vote. Passes unanimously. Next up, item 5.
Next TO changes. Yes, sir. JP5, JP De Leon. This too is an ARPA-funded position. This currently is a project position. It is occupied. Someone occupies the position. The request is for the court to actually create from this position a full-time position. The incumbent's desire is to participate in our retirement system. And remember, if you're a project temp, you're not able to do that. So the incumbent wants to participate in the retirement system. So Judge De Leon is asking that this position be changed from a project position to a full-time administrative clerk position, pay grade 17. Again, this is an ARPA-funded position. There is an additional cost of about $10,000 to cover the retirement benefits.
So even though it is moving from a project position to a full-time position, it's still ARPA funded, so it will potentially go away in
2026.
2026.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Move approval.
All right, we have a motion to approve item 5. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right, please cast your vote. It passes unanimously.
And then my last item actually is again a TO change. This is for the 372nd district court, as well as the 372nd and 432nd. I don't know why that's hard for me to say. Anyway, you should have a corrected communique there at your desk. Judges Lugo and Gonzalez are requesting additional judges bailiffs. They each currently have 1. They are both requesting an additional judges bailiff. Government Code, Chapter 53 allows judges of criminal district courts to have up to 2 judges bailiffs. So they are exercising their option, requesting 1 additional judge's bailiff for each court. We're estimating the cost to the general fund to be approximately $187,673.
So I asked Mr. Cradaville about this last time this happened. So if I remember correctly, Judge Allen asked for 2, and you instructed us that we didn't have a choice.
Yes, Judge, that's correct. This is a mandatory appointment under 53001 of the Government Code.
This is what we would call an unfunded mandate from the state. So I have a question for whoever can answer it in this room. According to the notes that I have, it appears that Judge Allen is recorded as having 1. Did he not ever fill the position?
So I was briefed on this item this morning. I believe in your corrected communique, it reflects 2, Judge Allen.
All right.
Reflects 2, and my staff will correct me, because again, I just heard it for the first time this morning. But apparently, the court has previously approved that second position. I believe we are in the process of trying to get it established, but there has been an approval for the second position, and so Judge Allen has actually 2 judges bailiffs, and that should be reflected on your corrected court communication.
Okay, so why can some judges do the job with 1 and others think they have to have 2? Anybody have an answer?
I do not have an answer.
And so if we voted no, then what?
Potential for litigation over the issue.
Okay, I'd like to see that. Okay, but you're saying by law we have to approve this. If we were sued, we would lose because it's state law.
I would agree with that, Judge. This is a mandatory action.
Okay.
Does the word mandamus come into this discussion?
It's crossed my mind, but hasn't been vocalized yet.
Okay.
Meaning challenging this law?
Meaning being forced to do it because it's our duty.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. All right. Do we have a motion on this item? Okay. No motion?
Move approval.
Okay. We have 1. Do we have a second?
A second.
All right. We have a second. Any discussion? All right. Please cast your vote. All right, passes unanimously.
And Ms. Rambrun will handle item
Y'all
7.
just leave me hanging out.
Well, I was pulling for the no motion. All right, number 7. Hi, Ange.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So we are looking for approval of a new recruitment program for equipment operators and mechanics. This would be effective August 30th, tomorrow, through December 31st. We're looking for the ability to offer recruitment incentives due to difficulties in recruiting and retaining equipment operators and mechanics. We are looking at a $3,000 incentive payable at 2 different points. It would be $1,500 after 30 days of employment and $1,500 after they complete their probationary period in the second payment. We do have a clawback provision, so to speak, in this program. Employees who don't complete 1 year of employment will have to pay back any payments that are made to them.
I, in general, am in favor of this. My reservation is that it does not do anything for retention of existing employees, and that's a problem. To only incentivize new hires and do nothing for those who have been with us for these many years seems to be less than equitable.
Let me start and we will. So the one item that we held had 2 provisions in it. On item number 2, one dealt with a market adjustment for for the craft, which is these individuals, and then the law enforcement piece. How we were going to try to address the individuals who are currently employed is with a market adjustment of 4%.
Okay. And that's in the item that we held till next week?
Yes.
Okay, I got you.
So, I struggle with giving somebody $1,500 after 30 days. I think we've had this discussion before about a different department, or I think it was, I can't remember. So, I would like to see a longer period before we give somebody a $1,500 bonus after 30 days. Can we give them $1,500 at 6 months? $1,500, $1,500 at 3 months, the other $1,500 at 6 months. Can we do something to eliminate the 30, giving them $1,500 at 30 days? I support the program.
The justification for this is to incentivize people to sign on with Tarrant County as equipment operators and mechanics. The further you move the incentive away from the sign-on date, the less it becomes an incentive, in my opinion.
So the items that we held, you're not suggesting we hold this? No.
This issue.
Okay. All right. Other questions or comments?
I just think newly hired person with 30 days is not an asset quite yet. So
yeah, I don't disagree with you. I don't disagree with you.
I struggle with that.
But there is a clawback provision.
Yeah.
Tell me the clawback provision again.
If they don't stay employed with us for a year, they have to pay back anything they were given under this program.
So let's assume they leave at the end of 6 months. They get their paycheck today. They leave tomorrow. What our paychecks are? What do we do? They're a week behind the actual time you've worked. So there's a way to recoup it. Basically, we just pull it out of the paycheck. They have to sign something saying to do that.
Right, they'll sign that up front, but whether the check will cover the entire amount, it's hard to say.
That's where I was about to go. Is that do they make enough for us to recoup the $3,000?
They may not. It will depend on their deductions, whether it's tax, health insurance, all of that. So they may not.
I mean, have we ever run into a scenario during one of these things where there wasn't enough money to claw back? I'm sure we didn't go out and try to sue them over it.
We have a similar program with tuition reimbursement, and yes, we've gone outside of payroll.
There have been instances where people have left owing us money for like the tuition reimbursement program. Our first option is always to enter into a payback agreement with them. And if they successfully perform under the payback agreement, then there's no need to take any further action. If they do not successfully perform under the payback agreement, then we may have to go to court.
Okay.
I'm going to suggest $1,500 at 3 months and the other $1,500 at 6 months. But
and it's currently $1,500 at 30 days and $1,500 at
6 months.
Okay, and you're saying what?
$1,500 at 3 months.
And then 6 months. I got you. Okay.
Is that a motion?
It is a motion. I move that we offer a $1,500 incentive at 3 months and then the second $1,500 at 6 months.
Okay, we have a motion. You
second
heard the motion. We have a second.
May I just clarify one thing? The
Yes,
6 months is the approximate period of the probationary period. Can we
Yes.
say 3 months and the end of the probationary period?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
That's fine.
Okay, so you amend your motion to incorporate that.
Yes.
And you
All right,
second
so,
that, and I
yeah.
finally got that one right.
Because
Okay.
that doesn't change anything. 6 months is 6 months. It happens to be the end of the probationary period, but it's still 6 months.
Occasionally, a probationary period can be extended if they've missed a significant period of work. So
Whatever, Ange.
I'm just dotting i's.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, do you have anything?
No.
Okay, all right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, please cast your vote. All right, that passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we come to purchasing.
I've been deeming that for our, trying to get some people.
Gotcha.
Good morning.
Good morning, Melissa.
Thank you.
She didn't hear you.
We have 3 items for your consideration. The first item is an award recommendation regarding RFQ number 2023-107. This is our annual contract for juvenile residential services for juvenile services, awarded to the various vendors listed. If approved, we're also requesting contract approval.
Move approval.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve item H1. Any discussion? Please cast your vote. Passes unanimously. Next up, number 2.
That's also an award recommendation regarding RFQ number F 2023-107A regarding juvenile residential services for juvenile, awarding to the various vendors listed, and also requesting contract approval.
Move approval.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve item 2. Any discussion? All right, please cast your vote. Passes unanimously. Item 3.
All right, the last item is regarding RFP 2023-136. This is our annual contract for behavior management and support services for juvenile services, awarding to Lena Pope Home Incorporated. If approved, we're also requesting contract approval.
Move approval.
I'll second it. We have a motion and a second to approve item 3. Any discussion here? All right, seeing none, please cast your vote. All right, passes unanimously. Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you.
That was easy. All right, we come to the County Judge and Commissioner section. The one item we have on here is discussion and possible action concerning a vote of no confidence in the Chief Appraiser and Executive Director of the Tarrant Appraisal District. So I have a statement that I want to make. As we've discussed here for almost 8 full months, property taxes are one of the most pressing issues that local governments and taxpayers face across Texas. Most people in this room understand that it starts with the property values being assessed by the appraisal district for the county you're in, here the Tarrant Appraisal District, and then the tax rates are set by all the different governmental entities. The Commissioner's Court has done its part for the people we represent. And I want to thank each commissioner publicly for your commitment to lowering property taxes for all. You set tax rates for the next fiscal year below no new revenue for both the county and the hospital district, and we have adopted a local homestead exemption on both entities. All of these are historic firsts for Tarrant County. But despite these efforts, taxpayers are not being well served by one entity, and that is the Tarrant Appraisal District. For years, the Tarrant Appraisal District has careened from one scandal to another, from one bad headline to another bad headline, and our taxpayers in this county deserve better. They deserve unrivaled transparency. They deserve outstanding customer service, and they deserve stability and consistency. Quite frankly, none of these currently apply to our Tarrant Appraisal District. And this is not condemning the good men and women that work at the Tarrant Appraisal District, of whom there are many. The governing board of the appraisal district has undergone changes, and they've begun to critically review the district's operations, but the day-to-day management continues to be a source of frustration and sadly even outrage for many people in this county. Whether it's the decision to implement a new software program that made protesting valuations exceedingly slow and frustrating and sometimes impossible altogether for taxpayers, or the recent revelations that a senior manager at the district encouraged dishonesty and lying to the media and thereby the public to cover up failures and shortcomings, the buck has to stop at the top. The chief appraiser has been the common denominator throughout all of these issues and episodes, and it is time to hold him accountable. It is past time for a change. The public has lost faith in the chief appraiser and his ability to best serve the people. It has become necessary for the Tarrant Appraisal District's governing board to take the appropriate steps to restore confidence in the appraisal district and its operations, and to begin the process of replacing the chief appraiser. So I will make a motion that we take a vote of no confidence in the chief appraiser and send a letter from the court to all of the board members of TAD calling on the replacement of the chief appraiser.
Second, and I have a comment.
All right, we have a motion and a second. We do have several people signed up to speak. Is there anyone else here that would like to make a comment?
Yeah, I've had no confidence in the chief appraiser for years, and it has nothing to do with our lowering of taxes. It has to do with his management of that agency, his mismanagement of that agency. He provides a profound lack of leadership to that organization, and it does not get better year over year. For that reason alone, I have no confidence in the chief appraiser, and haven't had for a long period of time.
Any other comments from the court?
Yeah. So I believe that it is time, it is past time for a change in leadership at the Tarrant Appraisal District. The issues recently and over the years at TAD have raised serious concerns about the chief appraiser's ability to serve our community effectively. It is clear that the chief appraiser's approach and leadership are out of touch with the needs and concerns of our community. TAD's handling of property assessments has been questionable, to say the least. It is crucial for us to voice our dissatisfaction and demand better leadership. A chief appraiser should prioritize fairness, accuracy, and accountability in their role. Unfortunately, recent events have shown that these qualities are lacking in the current leadership. To safeguard the integrity of the Tarrant Appraisal District, I believe it is time to express our lack of confidence through a formal vote. Our property assessments impact our financial well-being and the health of our community. The chief appraiser should be a trusted steward of this process, but recent missteps have eroded that trust. I support a vote of no confidence to address this critical issue, but I also want to make sure, because this court is going to get all of the media attention about this vote today. And there have been advocates who have come to this commissioner's court time after time after time Daniel Bennett, Thomas Trolankasi, so many more that have tried to beseech this court to do what it looks like we may do today. So we need to thank those folks for not giving up the fight and being the constituents that they are, for coming here and saying, do this. And so finally, your Commissioners Court is going to do something, it appears. And thank you to all of those advocates.
All right, any other comments from the court?
Yeah, I have a couple of them. This is something that I personally have been wanting to see for a long time. Kept thinking something would change. It didn't change. The only thing that probably, well, this didn't change either, but everybody in the county thinks that the Tarrant County Appraisal District is part of the Tarrant County Commissioners Court. And it has nothing to do with the Tarrant County Commissioners Court. So I'm glad to see this, wholeheartedly supported, and I think it's way overdue.
And I would simply add that this merely will express the will of this court to the TAD board that they do something. We can't make them. We never have had the authority to make them do anything. But this will be an historic act that perhaps if they ignore it, they will ignore it at their own peril.
Thank you. I do have 4 people signed up to speak to this item. The first is Daniel Bennett.
Can I prefer to be last?
No, you can come up now. Okay.
Daniel Bennett, White Settlement, Commissioner Brooks, Commissioner Simmons, Judge O'Hare, Commissioner Fickus. I appreciate your words today more than you know. I see some of the usual suspects in the room that will come up and sing praises to the district. When I went to Keller and they recalled Ms. Wildman, the executive assistant to Mr. Law was there. She's a Keller resident. She has the right to be there, but she spoke in admonition of Ms. Wildman, as did Tony Pompa. Actually, she tried to tell the Keller City Council on how to behave and what to do in their own executive session. Last night, I was in Mansfield, and the former tax liaison officer, Will Wilshire, was there. And he was advocating also. I will not bore you with details, but I will say this. What he said was that the board's partly to blame for the software issues. I was stunned. Not enough money has been given to the appraisal district to do the software. That's what he said. He was tax liaison before Ms. Jacobson. I was stunned when he said that. This website they just recently did was never budgeted. It was never brought to the board. We don't know what's in their legal. Mr. Law even said, I get to move money around as long as I don't go over budget. He said it in a public meeting. He doesn't fill positions. His own first cousin, for a year and a half, head of commercial, that position was never filled. It was filled by an interim employee, Debbie Cabello, who was a long-term employee there. So you're looking at $180,000 for a year and a half. They had plenty of money to move around that budget. Now you go back to when we went live, tech shared court and on minimum. You can overlay the time frame. I believe some of the same actors were involved in that. Even the go live date was in 3 months of one another. Texture Court did not go live, Momentum did. And then they disassembled the legacy system. And I think that was pure arrogance. And in 2015, we had a train wreck and we never recovered. I go on and on and on. I just want to say thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Kenya Alou.
I don't want to waste this court's time. It sounds like the right thing is going to be done here today. The community has no confidence in the appraisal district, and it's because of its leadership, Jeff Law, and I'm thankful to this court for your action today. And we will do our part at Citizens Defending Freedom to encourage the board of TAD to do the right thing.
Thank you. Next, we have Tracy Stanley, and I believe Tracy is in another room. Is that Tracy right there? Okay. Is John Pete here? I do not see John Pete. Okay.
My name is Tracy Stanley. My name is Tracy Stanley. I'm a property tax agent and a realtor of 50 years. I'm a data junkie. I download data from different appraisal districts. I break it up, and then I make it available to people that can use it. There's not a person in this room that's not affected by the Tarrant Appraisal District database. And that database is the responsibility of Jeff Law. And he has done a fantastic job when it comes to protecting that data. Dallas Appraisal District was attacked by ransomware. They're still trying to recover. The city of Dallas is undergoing right now ransomware that affects their police department and courts. They're shut down. And Travis County Appraisal District is the same way. When all of this was going on, Jeff Law pulled back the horns and said, we're going to shut it down and figure out how to protect our data. They not only have current data, they've got history of data. I know that he probably doesn't know the difference between a floppy disk and a hard drive, but he knows how to hire the people to protect our data. I think he's done a wonderful job. I hope that you will consider what's happened in the past. He couldn't talk about ransomware because all that would do is attract all these hackers. And they're terrorists because they can shut down our school district's incomes. They shut down every taxing entity's income. And it's the most valuable resource we have, and we've got to protect it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, those are all the folks that have signed up to speak to this item. We have a motion. We have a second. Any further discussion from the court?
I'd just like to say one thing, and that is the reason that we don't talk about ransomware publicly is because we don't want to paint a target on our backs and issue a challenge to that ransomware community to come after us. My heart bleeds for the city of Dallas and the Dallas Appraisal District and all others who have fallen victim to those attacks. We've been fortunate, and that's all I'm going to say on the subject.
Thank you. Any other comments from the court? All right, seeing none, please cast your vote. All right, the vote of no confidence in the chief appraiser and the request for the board to replace him immediately passes unanimously. All right, next up we have board appointments. Do we have any appointments? I think Commissioner Simmons has one.
I do. So I am appointing Jason Thomas. He is the Director of Field Operations for Precinct 2, to appointing Mr. Thomas to the Kennedale TIF number 1, Mansfield TIF number 1, Mansfield TIF number 2, and Mansfield TIF number 3.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further, Jason Thomas, any further discussion? All right, please cast your vote. All right, passes unanimously. Any other board or commission appointments? All right, seeing none, we do not have any bonds or certificates of self-insurance. Is that correct? Thank you very much. Next up, we have claims and addendum.
Move approval of the claims including the addendum.
All right, we have a motion to approve the claims and the addendum. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion there? All right, please cast your votes. All right, passes unanimously. Next up, we have a briefing item on the Tarrant County Subdivision Regulations Project.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Skinner is going to lay out this presentation.
Good morning, Judge and Commissioners. Today we want to provide you with a briefing on our efforts to update the Tarrant County Subdivision and Land Use Regulations. These regulations that we are currently under, we've had for several decades, actually. But I believe the latest update occurred back in 2012, so it's been a little bit of time. And so, obviously, there's been several changes or laws that have come about at the state level that have impacted development. One of those was HB 3167, which requires that city councils and commissioners courts take action on plats within a 30-day period. And so obviously we wanted to align our regulations with state law. But when we began that process, we thought, well, since these haven't been updated since 2012, maybe there are some other elements that we need to look at. And so our department, Transportation Services, we reached out to the Fire Marshal's office, the Public Health Department, the 4 Commissioner precincts, the County Judge's office, and in coordination with the Criminal District Attorney's office, we began to look at maybe what some of these other priorities might be. Things such as drainage, for instance. Maybe we need to enhance our drainage requirements. More impervious surface here in Tarrant County, obviously with development that's occurring. So there's stormwater runoff concerns. How do we protect our roads from that in that respect? Maybe we need to look at our roadway pavement sections. Or is there a way that we can develop a roadway pavement section that is more resilient to increased traffic that we're seeing and maybe even has a positive impact on our cost effectiveness long term in terms of maintenance? So we found that there were several other elements we wanted to look at as part of this. And so the coordination that I just mentioned earlier with the several departments and the commissioners' offices has culminated in the draft that you have before you today. So what I'd like to do is turn this over to Daniel Harrison with Freeze and Nichols, who we hired to assist us with this effort, to briefly go through his presentation, and I'll be happy to answer any questions at the end.
Thank you, Court. Thank you, Randy, for having me here today. I have a quick presentation just to walk you through the process that we have gone through. My name is Daniel Harrison. I am a planner. I work for the firm Freeze and Nichols. With me today also is Connor Roberts and Stan Lynch and Wendy Deneau, who head up our planning and our accounting efforts. And so what we want to do is walk you through the regulations. As Randy has already mentioned, there's lots of changes in state law. As they meet every 2 years, they update what we can do. So we're going to highlight these for you. What we did is we took the current subdivision regulations. We've really split that out into 2 documents. The purpose of splitting that out is because we have plating requirements that we take a look at, and then also we have our engineering standards. And often that time when we look at engineering standards, and we have construction documents, so the purpose is spreading those out. So let's look at, when we look at engineering standards, we talk about drainage. Drainage is very important. So we looked at bardage, the geometry, updating and reviewing that criteria with the different precincts. We did increase the minimum right-of-way for roads from 60 to 70 to address additional drainage. There's a couple of photos in there that you can sort of see what that would look like. We did address lot-to-lot drainage as new subdivisions come in. We do have regulations prohibiting lot-to-lot drainage. As rain happens, where that water goes, it's important. We want that going into the right-of-way, not going from a neighbor's house to a neighbor's house, creating issues as well. We also have adverse drainage impacts. We have those being prohibited. We have those defined as increasing the runoff or the levels of our 5, 10, 25, and 100-year storm event. So we are prohibiting those adverse impacts. We also looked at the drainage design calculation. So when you look at this picture here, you see there's improvements on the drainage improvements under the road. We've looked at those standards to make sure that we have the best available moving forward. Also, when we look at drainage, we look at how do we calculate, how do we hand over to an engineer, and that engineer knows how to do these calculations. So working with your engineers, we have gone through and established how an engineer would develop their plans for that. So we looked at the analysis, we looked at the hydraulic design. So when we look at whether we're looking at a 5-year storm event or a 25-year storm event, what are facilities designed to? We've updated those regulations. Downstream evaluations, we also want to be sure we're looking as new subdivisions come in, what is happening downstream to those subdivisions, because we don't want to create, once again, those adverse impacts to the existing property owners. Stormwater detention requirements, we have standards for those as well. So looking at your drainage plans, you're going to see whether you need to retain water so you don't pass that down during a storm event. Also, drainage easement. There's a possibility for an off-site drainage easement that is working private property owner working with another private property owner to show they have land dedicated to handle drainage easements if those are needed off-site. So moving over to the roadway. So that was the first part, roadway, our drainage standards. Our second part is our roadway construction. So we've gone through and updated the roadway construction standards. We also have some stopgap measures in there for connecting to TxDOT roadway design manual in case we need to use those. And so we've updated those regulations, once again, worked with the different precincts to align those with current and best practices. We also looked at updating the roadway cross-sections. We did add a local roadway cross-section, touched on that a little bit in the drainage section, but we have 70 feet of right-of-way if we're using a bar ditch where we have drainage, or if we're doing curb and gutter, that can be a little bit less because that's going to be handled by those facilities. We also had where, as far as the design of the roadway, that's going to be based upon the traffic volumes anticipated. Pavement design as well. A key point in this is that a geotechnical survey. So just understanding what the soils that road is being built on, if there's additional design needed to address that roadway, because we want to be sure that these roadways are going to handle the test of time. We did also add a standard in there. The minimum design life of the roads would be at least 20 years. Driveways do have standards for, we do want to try to line up driveways when possible. The county is the approval authority for the driveway locations. Additional layout and geometry of roadways, having dedication if we're having a subdivision come in, all those roads are dedicated, are designed and built by the subdivider. If we have right-of-way that needs to be dedicated around the edge of the perimeter, or if there's a road going along the side, we have standards for that as well.
Would you go back to the issue of pavement design, please?
Sure.
It's been one of my pet peeves for many years that the city of Fort Worth, in its extraterritorial jurisdiction, requires the roads to be concrete. We are counties. We do not do concrete. We cannot repair concrete. We cannot maintain concrete. We do asphalt. And for the city of Fort Worth to require that in unincorporated Tarrant County, the roads have to be concrete, gives them power over us that they should not have. we can build an asphalt road that is every bit as strong, that will last every bit as long as asphalt. And we have the ability to maintain an asphalt road, something that we do not have with concrete. So would you address that issue?
Yes.
Please.
Yes.
And I'm going to add, because that's a question I had on the building of these concrete streets. Is there a lot of need for concrete streets or to use concrete?
There's requests to use concrete streets, and so in the update of these regulations, asphalt's the default, and so that's the standard that we have. And now the county can approve if someone does want to use a concrete street. That could be something that the county can approve if they deemed it appropriate. The issue that was discussed about Fort Worth requiring currently in the extraterritorial jurisdiction, which is the overlapping area, unincorporated, but Fort Worth, the subdivision rules apply. There's an interlocal agreement that I think was going to be looked at and updated after we finish updating the county's base development regulations. What we're doing here now is to see in that updated interlocal moving forward with using the new county regulations that require the asphalt streets as well. But currently right now there's an interlocal that sets up how those streets are going to be designed. And so as Commissioner Brooks pointed out, that's sort of the reason why that's been in place for right now. But moving forward, the county regulations would be set up for the asphalt streets, and then the interlocal needs to be updated after these regulations are done if the court's desire is to take over more of the roadway design and what is built on the ground in the ETJ.
Mr. Cradaville.
Yes, sir.
Do we have any legal authority of any kind to fight back against this ETJ requirement?
I would have to look into that, Judge. I'm not prepared to answer that right now. Absolutely.
Okay.
The roads are ours until the city of Fort Worth annexes them.
Okay.
So they should be built to our standards, not the city of Fort Worth, because they may at some point down the road annex these subdivisions. Now this is a critical issue in Precinct 1 because subdivisions are proliferating in unincorporated Precinct 1. We've got subdivisions popping up everywhere, and the price of the homes in these subdivisions is not cheap. But, as I stated earlier, we can build an asphalt street that is every bit as durable and every bit as long-lasting as a concrete street. These should be our specifications, not the city of Fort Worth specifications.
So why don't we schedule this for September 5th? A discussion about legal options on our Commissioners Court agenda.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Y'all can legal list to death if you want to, but there are our streets.
Yeah. I'm trying to help us here. Yeah.
I understand.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
And typically,
we got Russell standing back there wanting to weigh in.
Judge and Commissioners, this last legislative session, the House and Senate passed SB 2038, which changed the rules regarding ETJ. in the sense that landowners and property owners can now petition a city if they're within the ETJ to drop out of the ETJ and become the counties. So as we're looking to work through this issue in the future, there may be some of opportunities to deal with this issue as you brought up, and you too, Commissioner Simmons, with working with our property owners to say, okay, do you want to continue to be part of the ETJ and meet those requirements, or do we want to have them petition to drop out of the ETJ to where then they would fall under our regulations.
Okay. Yeah,
Now,
so
is
Mark,
this
if you
ability to opt out a one-time event? I mean, you opt out, you're out forever?
Well, you're out of the ETJ, and then the legislature has been very clear that they're not interested in expanding ETJ authority. They're not interested in those types of
Because
issues.
my experience with these subdivisions is that the first time something happens, then all of a sudden they want city protection.
That's right.
In the unincorporated area.
That's right.
And we can't have them flopping back and forth.
Well, that's a good question because, are they in? Is it the homeowner that makes that decision? Or is it the developer that makes that decision? I would think the developer.
Correct. It would be the developer if they wanted to look at it, to pull themselves out. But the law does allow an individual property owner to go and petition.
It's a complicated issue.
So
and
that law will need to have a good, thorough understanding of that.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And starting with just to help clarify, most interlocal agreements between a county and a subdivision, or a county and a city about the subdivision regulations, they either automatically renew every year or there's a provision that they can be updated in 90 days. So there's opportunities to update that. But just as we were touching base on, in the ETJ, the law has changed where you can petition to be removed, you can have an election to be removed, or in this example, Fort Worth can just go ahead and release that ETJ. And the other big change that we have now is when cities annex voluntarily, the ETJ no longer goes out with that. So unless the landowners vote to be in the ETJ. So some big changes hopefully coming, and then so those changes to the regulations that will be applied to roads in the ETJ, I think in these next upcoming years could definitely change. But as our default in the current, our drafted subdivision regulations, those will be asphalt roads as we work that out with all the different precincts. Going back, okay, and then of course we updated definitions. Moving on to the third part was the actual platting. And so we have, as Randy was mentioning, we have state law changes that we wanted to update. We added the sites for all the state law that we needed to in there as well, providing for exemptions. One of the big things was, as Randy mentioned, was the timely approval of plats, how all counties and cities are on the 30-day clock, and how we either approve with conditions, or deny with conditions as well, all our plat applications coming through. And then what we have to do also as well is have opportunities for people to submit their plat with bonds. That was also in the 2019 legislative changes. We've added that in there as well. Subdivision design standards, once again, we have establishing if the county does want to take over private roads, there's a process for that. We've outlined that. There's an assessment that would be done to the property owners. All property owners along that roadway would have to be involved in that, and then that road built up or brought up to the county standards before that's even brought to the Commissioner's Court. So we've updated those type of standards. The other standards I wanted to mention, we talked about adding 2 points of access into the subdivision. Here's just an example. So as we're working, of course, we're thinking about emergency responders and in a subdivision. If we have a fire going down a county road, there's a grass fire, we don't want a subdivision where we have one way in, one way out. We want to be sure that people can get out. So here's just an example that we highlighted on the screen. You have the main entrance, but of course, we're going to have at least 2 ways in and out of a subdivision. This example has 3, but once again, that's for emergency situations. That also helps school buses going through, picking up kids. Also, if you think about UPS and FedEx deliveries, and also so that main having one point, sort of a choke point there, is not what we want to see in a subdivision. We have those standards now to address that. Talking about water and wastewater, just must approve water and wastewater within the public right-of-way if someone is putting that in there. So we have standards also if there's fees, if someone is cutting into the county road, we've added that. Manufactured home rental communities, there's state law that we can regulate these, and we've put those into the regulations. Also, if there is use of the county right-of-way, we have standards for that as well, and then updated the definitions. We do have an appendix where we have the application form, the standard plat notes. Those all can be handled administratively. They don't have to live in the subdivision regulations. So we set up the subdivision regulations to enable the county administration to be able to update the application forms, to be responsive to what we need to see on the application form and what we need to see on the standard plat notes, things like that. So with that, any other questions? Thank you for your time. We really appreciate the time. I know we've had some discussion here, but if there's anything else we need to talk about, any of the recent state law changes, we can do that. There was also an updated a proposed fee schedule as well in the document.
Yeah.
All right, any questions or comments?
Thank you.
Just a comment. I had a gentleman in my office yesterday morning who had assembled a tract of land at Chisholm Trail Parkway and some street in the ETJ of the city of Fort Worth in unincorporated Tarrant County. And he was advised that he needed to replat these pieces of property that he had acquired and proposes to develop. So he submitted a replatting application to the city of Fort Worth. They told him, "Thank you very much. You'll hear from us within 6 months." How do we get relief for our citizens in unincorporated Tarrant County from the bureaucratic overreach of the city of Fort Worth?
There will be 2 ways that they could seek relief. One would be as the county moves forward and updates the subdivision interlocal agreement between the county and Fort Worth, that can be addressed at that time. Who should be processing plats in unincorporated area? That could be the county, and that could be worked out in the interlocal, so it wouldn't be Fort Worth doing those. The second option is, as we sort of talked about Senate Bill 2038, that they could be they could file a petition to be removed from the ETJ of Fort Worth, and then once they're out of the ETJ, they are just unincorporated area that does not have an ETJ on top of them. And in another city, their ETJ cannot, if close to somewhere else, their ETJ is not going to be able to extend over.
Just parenthetically, this is commercial property, not residential property.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions?
I'll just make a follow-up on that. We are, I think the theme here that we've heard is with regard to those interlocal agreements that really need to be addressed and updated. Many of them have been in place for many years. Interlocal agreements with not just the city of Fort Worth, but with our other ETJ cities. So we're already beginning the process internally to take a look at those. Obviously, we're going to want to work with the court pretty closely in that process, and we'll be following up. But of course, our number one goal at this point was to make sure that we have our subdivision regulations in place so that we have a launching pad and foundation for those discussions. So we'll be bringing this back on October 3rd for the public hearing and for action at that time.
All right, thank you very much. Next up, we have a briefing on the Tarrant County Video Magistration Program.
So this is an item that Commissioner Simmons and I had spoke about, and she wanted to have an update basically on how that program is going. Also, some of the bigger cities that are trying to begin to participate with us, and I've asked Mr. Schubert to talk about that since that is his bailiwick.
Good afternoon, Judge and Commissioners, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak on behalf of the criminal courts on this process. And for those that don't know, we made a huge shift in magistration roughly 6 years ago that led to what we refer to as central magistration, which led to the magistration process. So what I'm going to attempt to, I'll make sure I answer Commissioner Simmons' question, so I will go as deep into this as you all seem necessary, but I wanted to make sure that I give you a quick overview. As you're aware, the reason that Tarrant County we magistrate defendants is that an arresting officer shall bring a defendant in front of magistrate within 48 hours of arrest. It's important to realize our goal is that an officer brings them to us. So therefore, we have a magistration process in place with staff for magistration 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, to make the magistrate available to law enforcement agencies. All our magistrations are actually done via video, no matter where they're located, whether it's at JPS, inside the Tarrant County Jail, or at Green Bay or other locations. All this magistration is broadcast to the public, so these are not secret proceedings inside of a jail cell. It's all available to the public. And you can also, if any defendant's family wants to know when the person on magistrate, you can find the magistration docket on the Tarrant County website. We're trying to be as transparent as possible.
Excuse me, you only mentioned magistration in Tarrant County facilities. In order for this program to be effective, it's going to have, magistration is going to have to take place in remote locations in cities throughout Tarrant County, hopefully obviating the need for prisoners to even hit the back door of the county jail. They can be magistrated in the jurisdiction where they were arrested, bond set, and them released without them ever having to hit our back door. That is the goal, the ideal goal of video magistration.
Absolutely, sir. And I wanted to make sure that commissioners know that all our magistration sessions are being broadcast to the public. And ultimately anybody that we currently magistrate in Arlington, DFW Airport, we're starting a pilot program with Fort Worth, magistrate in Keller, Mansfield, which actually happens in Everman, North Merchant Hills, and we have 12 in those other locations, and we can actually do on demand at Lake Worth and in Azle. So as you know, any defendant that could possibly bond out in those remote locations would probably bond out here. So I agree with you entirely, is there's no reason to bring these low-level risk defendants all the way down into Tarrant County. That's a waste of resources. And also, when people bond out earlier, they're able to address their criminal justice issue. Particularly these low-level defendants may have jobs, they have child care issues, and so forth. And it takes time to get in and out of the Tarrant County Jail. And so if they can bond remotely, that can happen. So those are the locations that we're working for, but it's important to realize that all our sessions are done via video so that they can be retained accordingly. All the video magistration process, we communicate with these remote LEAs, including the Sheriff's Department. We do financial interviews for all defendants. This interview is done so that they can determine how much bail they could afford. It's also used later in the process if they ask for a court-appointed attorney. This financial information determines whether indigent and the court-appointed magistration occurs. It's all done digitally. Magistration documents, no matter where the person is standing, they have the same due process rights, and all that magistration paperwork is absorbed into the Tarrant County Information System, which is TextShare. We use TextShare magistration, and it's consumed into TextShare. So all that is consumed remotely. So I've already kind of talked about where we magistrate remotely. I agree with you, in a perfect world, we would be in every law enforcement agency. It would shorten the time bonds are being set for these defendants. In addition, it would allow them to be released sooner. So I would ask the commissioners to encourage the cities in your area that to encourage them to do so. Bottom line, at magistration, we give individual consideration to every defendant. In order to ensure that the nature and circumstances of the charge is considered, and we consider the public safety of Tarrant County on setting the bond. And it's important to note that at magistration, if they are indigent, they are appointed to counsel at that time, so they have counsel as quickly as possible. Ultimately, the effects of video magistration is, as I stated earlier, individual consideration is given to each individual. It's not a machine. There's transparency. It's public. Everybody knows what we're doing. Low-risk individuals are able to bond out remotely without being transported. High-risk individuals can get proper supervision, and they can be transported to Tarrant County if they need GPSs, other type of monitoring to be handled by CSCD, which does our pretrial supervision. Ultimately, fewer individuals are transported into the Tarrant County criminal jail, and it helps control the jail population.
So, the first week of the pilot program with the city of Fort Worth took place last week, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
How many folks did they video magistrate?
There were 5 that were magistrated last week.
1 or 5?
5. All week. Yeah.
Okay. And so how do you have a sense of how Fort Worth PD accepted this, felt about it? Is this something they're going to enthusiastically embrace?
I'll go back to the beginning, as our role is to, when they present, we will be there and ready when they want to magistrate. We have a process in place that's been communicated with Fort Worth, and when we're ready, we'll be ready.
When they're ready, we'll be ready.
The role of the courts is they present to us. We can't get into their internal processes of how they do that.
Okay. So we have had a very rough start with Fort Worth. Up until, I think, 2 days ago, we had only magistrated 1 person.
Okay.
And it was an element of, we've been meeting for several months now with the City of Fort Worth staff, with the police department, with an assistant city manager, their magistrates, and what has happened is that while the city employees understand the magistration process, there was a failure on their part to educate the contract group that is running their holding center, which is LaSalle. Mm-hmm. And now they now realize that, and we're going to have to go back and help them train LaSalle, because LaSalle is the group that handles all of their inmates. And so we were hoping that as we move forward, that we could get anywhere from, we do 3 magistrations a day with the city of Fort Worth, and Greg's team does 24 hours a day magistration anyway. And we were hoping that we could be able to identify at least 5 individuals per magistration period to be able to push them out without having to come to our jail, and we have not gotten there yet.
Okay. Well, it's a pilot, and so hopefully we'll get there. But last on the our meeting on the 15th, I said that I suggested it's time to look at other methods of solving this problem of overcrowding in our jail. And I shared that those arrested by Fort Worth police make up 40% of Tarrant County's jail population. That is the information that had been given to me from staff. So again, approximately 40% of the detainees in our jail are Fort Worth police arrestees. I also shared with my colleagues on the court and taxpayers that the City of Dallas and Dallas County have a contractual cost-sharing agreement. They have an ILA that, in plain language, the City of Dallas pays Dallas County for the housing and care of the City of Dallas's arrestees until a case is filed. So I am keenly interested in unencumbering Tarrant County taxpayers and placing the responsibility of the care and custody of Fort Worth PD's arrestees on the City of Fort Worth. And at the time, you questioned or you asked Mr. Cradaville if it was legally permissible for us to charge Fort Worth. And the sheriff and Mr. Manius both advised they would get with their colleagues in Dallas to get more information about the agreement that Dallas County has with the City of Dallas. So thank you for the update on video magistration. Can I hear back from you two on what you've uncovered?
So when it came to Dallas County and those agreements, we inquired as to the Class B and aboves. I believe that the agreement that Dallas County has is one where that at the time they were accepting Class C misdemeanors from the City of Dallas, and Dallas was paying them to house the Class C misdemeanors, but they are not paying them for Class B and above defendants until they've been, charges have been accepted by the district attorney's office. That's my conversations with my counterparts. I believe that's what his message was.
And Commissioner Simmons, the short answer to the question on requiring payment is there's not a mechanism to require a municipality to pay a county to house a prisoner.
Okay. So now I did a little bit of research as well, and I happen to have the Dallas County, City of Dallas contract. It's 16 pages, and the City of Dallas and Dallas County have been partnering since 1978 regarding the detention of city prisoners in county facilities. The city and county both agreed to share costs for the construction and subsequent operation of the jail, as the City of Dallas does not have large-scale detention facilities. And I'm going to read a few provisions in the ILA. But first, I did check with a couple of commissioners over in Dallas. Dallas County does not and will not take Class Cs in their jail. They don't even allow them to be brought to their jail. They only take Class Bs and above. And until the City of Dallas files the case, the housing and care of City of Dallas's arrestees is on the City of Dallas's dime. But yes, Dallas County does not house, they do not take Class Cs. They only take Class Bs and above. So some of the provisions in the ILA, and I just want to put this out here as we continue to consider alternatives. This amendment number 5 shall not be construed to require overcrowding of the jail, and the sheriff's decision shall be conclusive as to whether additional city prisoners would cause overcrowding. In Section 3 under jail operations, A, right of refusal. Sheriff's right to refuse admittance. The sheriff, including through the sheriff's designee, has sole discretion to refuse to admit any city prisoner who is in need of medical attention prior to confinement or upon determination that the city prisoner should not be confined in the Dallas County Jail, absent a commitment order directing the sheriff to receive and place in jail the person committed in the Dallas County Jail. Once a prisoner has received needed medical attention, the prisoner may then be presented again for admission to Dallas County Jail. So they have medical clearance provisions, magistration. I mean, it's a 16-page document. And they've had this relationship. They just renewed the agreement. They've had it since 1978. So I petition that we should be able to consider such an agreement to alleviate some of the cost of housing 40% of Fort Worth's prisoners. We're just giving it away. It doesn't make sense to me. And so I'm not sure, GK, who needs to...
I'd like to see a copy of that contract. I already asked your staff for that because I'm going to get back with Dallas on that because that's
Okay.
not what I was told.
Okay.
When you were mentioning the Class C, are we talking about misdemeanors?
Class C misdemeanors are yes.
Does our jail take any Class C misdemeanors?
No, I don't think...
No, we don't.
We don't.
We do not take Class C misdemeanors.
But I was told, GK just said that Dallas County takes Class C's, and that's what the city
At one
pays
time,
for,
and I'm sorry,
and we don't.
Commissioner, what I meant, at one time, I don't know if they take them anymore. At one time, they were taking.
Yeah, they absolutely do not. So I just really think this is something we need to look into. I think everybody ought to, pony up and pay their share. I love the city of Fort Worth and leadership, high people, but this should not be our burden alone. And we talk about, this court is all of us. You've seen it demonstrated. We are concerned about dollars and cents and fiscally responsible. Us paying for the care and custody and housing of City of Fort Worth's prisoners, that is what's causing our overcrowding. We wouldn't have to pay $18 million a year for Garza County if Fort Worth would take care of their own. And then we implement video magistration, and we get all these $25, $50, $100 bonds out of our jail. The one I mentioned 2 weeks ago, I'm not sure if he's still there, $25 bond. He's been sitting in jail over 60 days. And we pay upwards of $100 a day to take care of that person. Make that make sense. It does not. So hopefully somebody can, I'm not sure who needs to be researching this. I'm happy to be.
I will, and I want to go back and talk to my counterpart in Dallas again too, if I can get a copy of that
Okay, I've got the contract.
Just to clarify, and I'm all for doing what we can to alleviate the jail population. What I think you're telling me is the county has the city of Dallas pay to take prisoners above Class C misdemeanors.
B and above.
Okay. And
until a case is filed.
Okay, and y'all have told us repeatedly that we can't refuse them under state law.
That's correct. And
So Fort Worth could voluntarily choose to give us money, but under state law, unless they choose to do that, and we can't even get them to waive a $5,000 fee for sandwiches for senior synergy. So, but they would have to voluntarily agree to do it.
correct. And in the case of the Dallas County contract, there was an agreement there that they would receive some interest in the jail as well. So it wasn't just a total giveaway that the city of Dallas began funding the county
So I'm
operations.
totally good with if they're willing to pay it. I'd say good luck with that, but.
Right, especially if you
The video magistration, I want to go back to the video magistration. So, the overall goal in the video magistration with the city of Fort Worth is there are people they take straight to us that we have in our jail, and it may take a while to get them bonded out. It may take a while that we could avoid having altogether if they would allow us to do the video magistration.
That's our goal, yes.
And I think one of the things we had asked, and if you just touched on it, I didn't hear it, was what can we legally do to require them to participate in it? So, and like, I mean, if we have to play hardball, so be it. Close down the tunnel. I mean, there's ways to do stuff where they're going to go along with it, and it seems like the let's be gentlemanly, pardon ladies, but it's not working. We started talking about this when I got here, the month I got here, and we're 8 months into it, and we can't get them to literally see more than 3 people in a week. I mean, this is beyond absurdity. So the layers of bureaucracy and this won't do it and this won't do it. Okay, well, it's time to turn up the heat and decide we're going to do it a different way.
Yeah.
So you want to bring prisoners? Okay, you can't use the tunnel anymore. And I mean, at this point, we need to do something to say, we need your cooperation, we have a problem, instead of all these ridiculous roadblocks that keep popping up over and over and over and over. So I would like to see, at this point, our staff come back with some creative things we can do to force them to cooperate with us for the betterment of not only the entire county, but also for the city of Fort Worth. Okay?
I could not agree with you more. Video magistration as a tool, if we could get it countywide, would help reduce our jail population. Now, we've already had a request from the sheriff to build another jail. And I said to him at that time that I would not be in favor of building another jail until we go through all of these other ways to reduce our jail population. Video magistration is critical in that process. If we can lower our jail population, then we don't need another jail. Simple as that.
All right, I think it's probably pretty clear where this group stands. So, all right, anything else on this magistration program?
Not at this time.
Okay. Do we have any budget issues here at this point to discuss?
We do not, but I'd like to point out that the item that we held today is part of the budget process, and so we won't be bringing anything again next week until a vote is made on the item that we held.
Gotcha. All right. Okay. Any announcements or comments from the court? All right, seeing none, now the public comment portion of the meeting. First person to have signed up to speak is Merle Glasscock.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I am Merle Glasscock. My comments are my own. And again, I thank you for listening to the public. You are elected officials who want to help the citizens of Tarrant County. You are elected by the citizens of Tarrant County. Why will you not hear the citizens speaking on non-agenda items earlier during this Commissioner's Court? Are you aware that some citizens leave their work so they can speak to you? Do you think it is a good idea to send these citizens who may or may not vote for you the message of you're not really wanting them to speak before this court? Please consider listening to the public comments about non-agenda items earlier during this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Levon Cockrell.
Hi, y'all. I want to second what Merle says about moving these items up earlier. Knees hurt. People have commitments. You can't sit so long. I have a friend who has blood clots, can't come. And I think it's done statewide, and so it would probably work very well for us. My comments today, though, are about, and you're going to love this, Judge O'Hare, it's about that free parking for senior citizens in that nice parking garage that we paid off a long, long time ago. And there is a thought to be made that if you let me speak earlier and I park, that I could leave and then you now can rent that parking space. And so I'm encouraging you to let me bring my ticket and you stamp it and you let me go for free and park for free, because I do it twice a month. I stay the whole time if I can, and that's $20 out of my budget, and that's a lot. Now, I think that structure is there for about 100 more years. And the only thing wrong with it is it's very dirty. And so it needs to be washed. It needs to be, it just is dirty. And so there is a cost to that. There's probably some cost to maybe some of this concrete is falling. I haven't seen it because I've been on all floors in the last year and a half. And so parking on the street is dangerous for senior citizens. It's hot also, and you have to go feed, when you're here for 7 hours sometimes, we've been here 3, 10, 11, 12, no. You've got to go feed the meter. It's safer for us to park in that parking garage. It would be nicer if you let us speak earlier so we can leave, and then we can watch on television while we eat our bonbons. I really appreciate your time, and that's just kind of one of my pushes. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Robert Van.
Good afternoon, Judge and Commissioners. Well, you've heard these names before on multiple occasions, so Robert Miller, Kelly Masson, Chastity Congius, Dean Ray Stewart, George William Zink, Adrian Chavez, Javante Myers, O. Young Park, Georgia Ray Kate Baldwin, and Linda Carol York. These were all people, our fellow human beings, who suffered from a mental illness or were intellectually developmentally disabled, who died or were traumatized while incarcerated in the Tarrant County Jail. It's fair to assume that some, if not all of these people, were not properly referred as directed by Texas Criminal Code, Article 16.22. Was this because some or all jail personnel are not properly trained in recognizing mental or intellectual disabilities in people? Or was it because of a prevailing culture among some in the jail? The American Psychological Association has documented that people with mental or intellectual disabilities may quickly deteriorate in the jail environment, which can lead to all manner of symptoms and aggressions. This can and has led to serious conflicts between incarcerated prisoners and the jailers. Let me propose not what can, but some of what must be done to correct this situation and save lives. And I have to note that you're already doing a number of things as far as the video thing that we've been talking about here. But jail personnel must receive continuously updated training on deconfliction techniques when dealing with possibly mentally ill or intellectually impaired individuals. And they must be held accountable for not following proper procedure. Inmates must receive their properly prescribed medications, especially those prescribed prior to their arrest. Jailers must identify mentally and intellectually disabled intakes and must refer them to a magistrate within the 12 hours that is prescribed by law. Tarrant County is the only major urban county in Texas without public defenders. It's time for this court to give the DA's office the 3 mental health-focused attorneys it has requested. This could prove invaluable in identifying this type of a problem. This court must continue to pursue a facility to treat and, where necessary, house people with serious mental or intellectual disabilities, with the goal of restoring as many as possible to full and healthy life. Since it's been estimated, we're back to the 40% number here again, but this has been estimated. Okay.
Thank you. Your time is up.
Thank you.
Sharon Hines? No Sharon? All right, Nan Terry?
Good afternoon. I'm Nan Terry. These are my comments. Last meeting, Sheriff Wayborn mentioned awards for the jail. I couldn't find any specifics during an online search, so I did a FOIA request and promptly received information that we have 4 employees who won awards from the American Jail Association for this year, 2023. We also have a program that won an award, and 1 employee is now on the board of directors. If it's okay, I'd like to read their names. I don't know. Reading names is okay. Roger Stickler received the Civilian Employee of the Year. Chaplain Wes McDuffie, the Civilian Award. The Volunteer of the Year was Roger Stickler, excuse me. The Supervisor of the Year was Sergeant A.J. Mercado, and the Trainer of the Year was Lieutenant Latoya Jackson. And lastly, the 2023 Innovation Award went to the Tarrant County's Military Veterans Program. I'd like to thank each of these employees for that honor. Last meeting also, Judge, you mentioned that the jail statistics with the data set of the first 8 months, and those are correct. But the following stats are also courtesy of an open records request from the Commission on Jail Standards. In 2020, Tarrant County led the state in the number of inmates dying in their custody. I believe Tarrant County lacks a way to transmit both good and bad information. If you look at the most 4 populated counties, Dallas County has had the least number of inmate deaths 3 of the last 4 years. Tarrant County's had the lowest number of deaths once. But I'm not the only one concerned. I have a quote from a motion in a lawsuit over one of the recent deaths in the county from a federal judge. The motion was published in March of 23. Quote, the overall statistics that Tarrant County Jail has failed 3 inspections in the last 7 years, has the highest inmate mortality rate in North Texas, and has a mortality rate 3.5 times higher than Dallas County. Jail should put a reasonable policymaker on notice about potential condition of confinement issues at the jail. If you want the citation, you can email me or you can ask your trustee, district attorneys, rest staff. I've attached in my submission to speak today a brief by the Department of Justice, withdrawals in jails, a legal brief. I'm going to quote, deaths from withdrawal are preventable, and jail administrators have a pressing responsibility to establish and implement withdrawal policy and protocols that will save lives and ensure legal compliance. This brief describes the scope of the challenge, provides an overview of constitutional rights and key legislation related to substance use withdrawals, and outlines steps for creating a comprehensive response. I urge you to take a hard look at the existing detox protocols in Tarrant County Jail and ask, is the jail compliant and how can we improve? There have been 2 inmate deaths this year in 2023 of 2 inmates who are on detox protocols in their 30s.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Mike Brewster.
Good morning. Good to see you, Judge and Commissioners. Listen, I appreciate the time you gave me last week.
Yes, sir.
We discussed some property values, and I went home that night and realized that I hadn't been to school on that issue in a while, and I had some things to learn. The reason I wasn't is because I spend all my time nowadays in working on election transparency issues. And the issue that I'm bringing for you today has to do with Tarrant v. Paxton, which was a lawsuit that was filed over access to election documents. Clay Watkins, the AG, the attorney at the AG's office that's handling that case, has filed an appeal on it. Yesterday, the Second Circuit put out a notice that it's looking for, if the parties wish to go forward, they need to respond to that, and the Commissioners Court will probably have an opportunity to put an opinion in on that. I'm here to encourage you to either bail out of that or to contact Mr. Watkins and come to a settlement in that case. And in 3 minutes, there's only so much that I can do here. And I just learned of the announcement yesterday, so I didn't have time to prepare anything and bring with me. But within the week, I will have a brief available to all of you that will point out pieces of the law that typically have not been presented to the elected representatives when they have considered cases like this. And I believe I can show you why in the law and in the interest of the citizens of Tarrant County, going forth with this lawsuit is the wrong thing to do. And I'll get that to you directly. Appreciate your time this morning. Thanks again.
Next, we have Doreen Geiger.
Several years ago, a terrible tragedy happened in Tarrant County, and the situation has gotten worse with actions that have occurred recently. A mentally ill man in our jail, Mr. Corey Rodriguez, was upset because there was so much light coming through the tiny hole in his cell that he put a handkerchief over the tiny window to block some of the light. Because he did that, 3 jailers, all caught on camera, went into his cell and beat the hell out of him. He had a collapsed lung, he had 5 broken ribs, he had brain damage, and he had other health issues. It was never reported by these jailers that medical attention was needed. He laid on the floor in his cell for 48 hours before someone found him and called an ambulance. This man was so injured, he had to have surgery. Now, all of that's tragic, but the situation gets even more tragic. The man, the jailer who did the beating, and was taken before the grand jury. I've been on a grand jury. The grand jury indicted that man for that beating. Fortunately, our jail did fire not only the man who did the beating, but the 2 men that stood by and watched and did nothing. But the man who was the mentally ill man, Corey Rodriguez, who was beaten so badly, has never gotten any justice. Those 3 men, all of them with charges against them, have been free all this time to go beat up other people. Yes, they were fired from our jail, but they've never been to trial. And to make matters worse, a few weeks ago, our DA dismissed all charges against all 3 of those jailers. When reporters asked why the charges were dismissed, no real valid reasons could be given. Mr. Rodriguez now lives in California, and when an employee of the DA's office called him to let him know all charges had been dismissed against the people who had committed a crime against him, he said, "I will come back to Fort Worth for a trial." But that never has happened.
All right, that's all I have signed up to speak. Is there anyone else in the audience who would like to speak? Come forward.
Thank you, Judge O'Hare, Commissioners. My name is Gerald Miller. I am an African-American citizen that was born here in Fort Worth, Texas. I spent a large part of my time in the music industry in New York, managing artists like Lauryn Hill, working with Tupac, Biggie, Janet Jackson, Aaliyah, names go on and on. And I recently returned to my home and have some experience now with the Tarrant County jail system. In February, I was falsely arrested for theft of my own dog. The animal control took my dog after I was arrested. 36 minutes later, they adopted it out to a third party. But I was jailed for 3 days on those false charges, which were later dismissed 3 weeks later. While in that jail for 3 days, in the first 24 hours, I almost died because they refused to give me my blood pressure medication or diabetic medication. My blood pressure was 238 over 118. My blood glucose level was 520. They took me to John Peter Smith Hospital in the emergency room because they felt I was stroking out. And this was all because the system that the county judge has in place of having Fort Worth detainees go from from the Fort Worth side to the county side deprives you of any medication in that process, which can last 24 to 36 hours.
Yeah, I would say that's not the system I have in place, but keep going.
But, well, it's the system. It may not be the system that you have in place, Mr. O'Hare, but it's the system that they are implementing. And I can attest to that. So there's something inherently wrong with your thought process of what you have in place versus how they are implementing it. And there's something inherently wrong in these processes, especially when people haven't experienced them. I'm here as a living, breathing witness to tell you how things are going on. And so you can discount my testimony if you want to, but everything is documented. And I intend to hold the county accountable for this misdeeds of their staff. I also want to just say thank you for the vote of no confidence for Jeff Law, because I believe that he runs that organization as if he's Hitler and they are the Gestapo. I was recently thrown out of a meeting by the sheriff because he did not want me to speak about the fact and the reasons and the basis for why I believe that TAD should not reinstate them as security. And so before I could speak, he threw me out in front of a group of 3 white people, so I couldn't speak on the hearing. So my time is almost up, but I want to thank Commissioner Brooks for his action, Ms. Simmons for her action, you for yours, and Mr. Ramirez isn't here, but I've spoken to him in the past. And I just thank you for all the hard work and the job that you do.
Thank you. All right, I saw somebody else with their hand up.
Hello, I'm Carolina. I'm one of those bum flappers that you're always complaining about. But I wanted to talk today about something that I witnessed a couple of weeks ago. Manuel Mata and I, we do cop watching. We drive around and we try to hold the police accountable for what they're doing. We came to a fresh stop, which means that we caught them right when they turned the lights on. And this was over on 28th Street, and there was a man in a wheelchair, shirtless, shoeless, and he was on the sidewalk, and he was wheeling up and down sort of on the sidewalk. And we got our cameras ready and everything. We got out there, and they called for backup. And there was like 3 or 4 of them out there. And what he was arrested for, he got arrested for trespassing. But they didn't follow the law because 30.05, the trespassing law says a person who enters or remains on a property of another without consent, and the person has noticed that the entry was forbidden, or received notice to depart, and he did not. Well, the store owner where the man was found was actually the guy that called the police, and he didn't call the police because he was trespassing. He called the police because he was worried about him because he'd been up and down that road for about 2 days, 3 days, without the shirt, without the shoes. So they just pounced on him, took him to jail, and we kept shouting, diversion center, diversion center. They didn't take him to the diversion center because we went to the Sallyport to see. Sure enough, they were taking him to jail, trying to get his wheelchair out, trying to get him in there. And he went to jail, and he had a $250 bond to get out. So the thing is that they missed 3 stops to take him to the diversion center. The cops should have taken him. The LaSalle could have taken him, and Tarrant County could have taken him. I don't know why Tarrant County accepted him in because he obviously was not all there. He was the perfect candidate for diversion center, but diversion center can't go pick him up either. The only people that can take him to the diversion center are the police, or LaSalle, or the people that are at the entry of the tunnel. So that's the reason I came up here to tell you that this is not working out as it's supposed to be for the diversion center. Plus, you're talking about overcrowding. We had 7 criminal trespasses yesterday, the day before that 5, the day before that 10, the day before that 7 at the jail. So that could be alleviated. Also, you have, as far as saving money, since you guys like to clip coupons and save money, Cold Springs. Why can't you bring all the DWIs to Cold Springs? Cold Springs is there. Why do we have to build another prison? Just bring all the DWIs. It's got about 10 of those a night because they get if they don't have 10, at least 10 a night, they won't keep their grant that they got from the federal government. So there's a lot of people being arrested for DWIs that really aren't drunk. And also for the lady that was talking about Mr. Rodriguez, I want to say the secret of freedom lies in educating people, whereas the secret of tyranny is in keeping them ignorant. That's all I got to say. I'm done.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? All right, seeing none. We have, I believe, a very brief closed session, executive session, so please remain seated and silent while I read the following. The Commissioners Court will now recess the open session and proceed to closed session to discuss items exempt under Sections 551071, 072, 074, 076, 087, and 0725 of the Texas Government Code. We are now in recess. Ready? Okay. All right, we're back on the record after our most brief executive session of the year, I believe. We have no action to take, so I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Please cast your vote. All right, we are adjourned. Thank you.